The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Good morning, Houston. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. We have got an incredible show for you this morning. It's so sad what has happened to the economy, and people are living week to week. It's just sad. And we are also in the restaurant business, and we're seeing a lot of restaurants that are going under. Well, today's show, we're going to be talking about debt. And I'm telling you, our next guest and I have been together probably about 4 years. I have so much respect for him as an attorney when it comes to debt. This guy is a genius. Let me welcome you to my friend, John Mastriani, of one of the best law firms in the state of Texas when it comes to debt, Texas Debt Defense. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Steve-O. And unfortunately or fortunately, we've been together for 8 years. It's definitely excellent to be with you, but we're adding 4 more years to our age here. And it is unfortunate with people and this debt situation. And it's tough, but good things, are on the horizon, and bad things do happen to good people. And I'm here to sort of walk them through some of their questions and hopefully give them some good advice on their way back to financial freedom.
John, you and I have talked about cases that you've been involved in. And when I called you a genius at the beginning of the show, you just have a knack for helping people who are gotten themselves into debt. And I got to tell you, it is nothing to be ashamed of. It even happens to the great president, Trump. I mean, he had to declare bankruptcy. But what you do for your clients, and for the next 25 minutes, we're going to be discussing problems. And John's with us every month. John, tell us about your practice.
Well, what we primarily do now, we're an alternative to bankruptcy. I don't know if a lot of people realize, but Texas is a state where it's the most difficult state for a collector to be able to collect on a judgment. And as a result of that, a lot of states that don't have these protections, the people need bankruptcy. But here in Texas, we don't believe you need it as much. A lot of people don't actually qualify either for the bankruptcy, the Chapter 7. They think bankruptcy is just a release of your debts and you go on and live happily ever after. Of course, the Chapter 11 has to do with just businesses, and we're not going to be discussing that one. But the Chapter 7 is for individuals. Unfortunately, here in Texas, you might end up with the Chapter 13 as well. And the Chapter 13 is where you're going to have a federal bankruptcy judge or trustee overseeing you paying everything back anyway. They'll just give you more time You get the stigma of the bankruptcy on you. It ruins yourself for another 7 years. And we just try to work around those and help people get out of it without bankruptcy.
Well, I got to tell you, John, again, as I started off the show, I have so much respect for you. You're one of the finest debt relief attorneys, not just in the state of Texas, which is where you practice at, but throughout the country. Now, John, if I can't afford my bills, how can I afford to hire you as my attorney?
Well, you really can't afford not to hire us. Number one, of course, we realize if you can't pay your bills, we're not going to be asking you for a huge retainer up front or things like that. We offer initially a free consultation, and we work together and we try and figure out the best plan for you. But if you can't pay your bills and you can't get that Chapter 7, all you're doing is sliding your problem down the road. They're eventually going to sue you. They're eventually going to get judgments on you. And if you're not paying those judgments, which we do help with people after judgments as well, but if you're not paying those judgments, they're going to make your life more miserable. I said earlier that Texas is a difficult state to collect a judgment in, but most people have a home. Most people work very hard for their homes, and they're very proud of leaving that house to their children or something. But once you sell that home, it loses the characterization of a homestead. And once it does, it's amenable to a judgment creditor here in Texas. Another thing that happens, I've seen a lot, been doing this for 20 years, probably about 5,000 times, is the people that think they're judgment proof end up inheriting the house from their parents, and then boom, they could end up losing that house. So there's ways to work, and we work it in a smart way. In other words, every dollar you pay me has got to be worth something, not just to me or to try and defend an impossible situation, but to get your debt reduced and get you in the right position so you can, get back on the road to financial freedom for you and your family, sleep at night, and just start enjoying life again like all people should.
John, we hear a lot of these advertisements for credit repair services. Can they really help your repair your score?
They can help in the short run. Now, don't get me wrong. Your credit score, if you can't afford the debt to pay it anymore, or if you can just afford to make the minimum payment, you're never going to get caught up. And even if your credit score is low, just because these credit repair companies raise your credit score allegedly, you're still not going to be able to get a loan because your income to borrowing ratio is off. They can help a little, but I look at it like this, Steve-O. You got somebody that's making the 4% monthly payment a month. We've all looked at our credit card statements. The majority of us aren't fortunate enough to pay it all off in full at the end of the month. And we've all ended up borrowing credit card debt because it's easy, but it's so expensive with that 30% interest or 27 or 28% interest. You're never going to pay it back. Now, a minimum payment on a credit card debt is 4% a month. So I want everyone to try and follow me through on this because it's a little complicated. But most credit card companies, if you got an experienced lawyer like myself and the other fine ones throughout Texas, I'm not the only one. I have, obviously, I feel a certain way about how our firm is, but there's other good ones. find somebody that can help you, because if you go to approach the creditor yourself, you're not going to get the same deal as if one of the lawyers approaches the creditor, because they're used to the lawyer. They know they're going to fight. They know they can win, and you're going to get a much lower settlement either way. So I recommended to people, stop paying that credit card if you can't afford it for the next 30 years, because that's how long it's going to take to pay it back. You're not going to get a loan anyway, because your debt to income is off, and you don't want to service this thing for 30 years to have a nice high credit score. So you get with a lawyer, you get with somebody that can walk you through the things and defend you in the lawsuit, or even take care of something after a judgment. But at that point, you're 4% a month. Remember, I mentioned that at the beginning of this. And I know it's a long-winded answer, but it's the most important thing for people to understand. You're 4% a month. If you multiply that by 12, that's 48%. A good attorney has the contacts and things to settle for well below, 50%. So in theory, you stop paying your credit cards and you save that 4% a month for yourself, instead of getting that debt paid off in 30 years and costing you a fortune in interest and stuff. You can get it paid off in 12 to 16 months. And that's what your goal is. Your goal isn't raising your credit score. Your goal is getting out of debt. Because if you got a high credit score and you are fortunate enough to borrow more, what are you doing? You're putting yourself further in debt.
It's kind of like that old saying, John, you got a hole in your backyard. I want you to cover it up without digging another hole. And I think that's what a lot of people end up doing who don't retain somebody like yourself that can actually help these people out of debt. John, why should I not hire a debt consolidation company or a debt settlement group?
Well, first of all, if you got 5 or 6 different people that you owe money to, why are you going to turn it into just one person and make it higher? Because you might not be able to, make those payments, and you've got the same amount of debt and the person coming after you. Now, in an ideal world, yes, say you can get a loan, and with that loan, you can use it to pay off all your credit card debt at a lower interest rate. If someone can find that opportunity, take it. I agree with you, okay? But it's not going to happen, because you've got this high credit card debt that even if you're going to use the loan proceeds to pay it off, they're not going to give it to you because they're looking at your present debt. So you can't really get yourself a lower interest rate. Another problem you got with these debt consolidated debt settlement companies is they're national. They're not local. They're not lawyers. They're not going to be able to help you if you do get sued. And sometimes it's so crazy to me, Steve-O, sometimes you get a better settlement after a lawsuit than if you approach the people up front and try and get it taken care of. And it's a crazy situation, but that's how they think. Another problem with them is, as I said, they're national. So they're going to settle on the national average, and you're going to lose all that benefit of being in Texas. I remember when we were younger, we went to Cancun to Club Med, my family and I. And, Mexico back then was supposed to be a lot cheaper than the United States. The problem was at Club Med, they had that bead system where they were selling you the stuff at US dollar prices. So we never got to take advantage of the opportunity to be in Mexico. That's the same with these debt settlement companies. You're not going to get the opportunity of being in Texas for a lower rate. The worst thing they do, too, to you is I think it's criminal, and I've seen them, actually, I've seen one debt settlement company where the people were making the payments to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. You hold your own money. You might need that money for your family. I don't want the liability and responsibility of keeping track of how much everybody's, giving me. I will get paid for my services, and I'll work a payment plan. But I'm not going to make you pay me an extra $300, $400, $500 a month to hold on your behalf to settle. It just doesn't make sense. We had one debt settlement company, and this blew my mind over here, where they had the guy pay monthly to settle, and the guy raised enough money to do the settlement, and then they charged him an extra 10% for the settlement after they were giving him money monthly. And it turned out that he was upside down on the settlement, and he couldn't afford to make the settlement because the debt settlement company took his money up front. We don't charge for a percentage of debt settlement. We're lawyers. I can handicap the state. I know these lawyers on the other side. I know a good jurisdiction. I know a bad jurisdiction. I know what's going to work, and I know what's not going to work. And when we need to settle, don't get me wrong. If I see somebody that's been paying that interest forever, or it's a debt buyer, it's a different story. But we'll get into that when we get into the litigation questions.
John, I think everybody admits the economy is not good. I don't care what what the stock market is doing. I don't care what the president says, what's happening to the economy. All I know is I go to the grocery store, I see what that bill is. I go to the gas station, I see what that bill is. And it just seems like there's more people today living paycheck to paycheck. Are things different now than say they were 4 or 5 years ago?
They're actually worse for a few reasons. We've got a lot more people that are offering the services like we do, but they're just rubber stamping the plaintiffs, the creditors, and entering people at high settlements, taking their money. They're not fighting. I've seen people hurting. I've seen people, I take a secured debt and, take money out of that to pay the credit card. Don't ever do that. Don't take a second loan on your house or put something on the car, to turn a secured debt more expensive for you to pay back to take care of an unsecured debt. Economy is terrible. The credit card companies, they're asking for more money from the people to try and make up for their shortcomings. And what's really bad is the banks are allowed to count their reserves on what's called the M1A money supply. So the more unsecured debt a bank has, the more solvent they look on paper. So they want to see you have this high credit card debt. It's terrible. I mean, if you and me walked into one of the major banks and said, hey, we'd like to buy a CD for 25% interest rate, which is still about 5% lower than the credit card companies are getting, they'd ride us out on the rail. They wouldn't even give us a 12% CD.
John,
They're all about making money.
Why do you think so many people just wait way too long to get their money house in order? It just seems like they let these bills pile up in the drawer, don't open up the envelopes. Why do you think that happens?
Well, the first thing I think I think they lure you into it happening too, because they'll offer you that that no interest up front for 90 days, or they'll upgrade your suite at Disneyland and things like that. So they lure you into it. And then, 4% of borrow 20,000, you only have to pay 4%. You think, that's not a big deal. That's $800 a month. But then after you've been paying that for, 3 or 4 years, or you have a situation where you need that extra $800 a month because there's a life change, or car breaks down, or someone gets sick, or a job's lost, or overtime's taken away, it pops up. And people, they're embarrassed about it. They don't want to talk about it. That's why I started the show saying that bad things happen to good people, but sometimes you're your own worst enemy. Don't be afraid. Talk to somebody. Sometimes you don't need that extra thing. I'm a prime example. When I was younger, I thought, how to have this, how to have that, and then you realize it's really not that important. What's important is your peace of mind, and money for the child's education, or money, for your retirement, your golden years. And don't let these credit card companies trick you, because they give you 10% off maybe if you sign up for the credit card that day. But after 2 or 3 months of their interest rates, that 10% eaten up, and they got you as a revolver where you're just at their mercy, paying over and over and over again.
Well, we're coming to the end of the show. This show always goes by so fast, John. Tell me why I should retain you as my attorney to help me get out of debt.
You should retain us. You should retain us because we can help you up front. You don't have to worry about them calling you, and you've got somebody that can help you if you're sticking your head in the sand and you don't have anybody that can help you. When you pull it out, there's going to be problems. We've tried 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 cases. One overwhelming majority of the ones we try, just because they say that you owe that debt and you might really, they still got to go to a court of law and prove it. And you don't know your rights. I know your rights. I know how to demand them. I know how to make sure they're there. I know how to keep things out of the evidence to keep a judge from siding against you. And we've been doing it so long, you end up getting about a $10,000 or $15,000 defense for, $500 to $2,000, depending on your situation and how much debt you have, because we've already got the forms, we're up to date, we follow through, and most importantly, we care. You can get us on the phone. It's not a program that a computer chugged out. It's something that we talk and we set up idiosyncratically for you and your needs.
John, give everybody your phone number and your website.
Okay, well, my website is texasdebtdefense.com, and we have several phone numbers because of the tracking. All these particular web designers have me using, different ones for different websites. But the texasdebtdefense.com, which has a lot of information that can help you. Phone number is 832-501-0966. Get your cell phone and plug the number in right now. It's 832-501-0966. Call us today and sleep better tonight.
Boy, isn't that the truth. John, we love having you on the show. You're a world of information when it comes to debt relief. John will be back with us again next month with more Ask the Experts. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And that will do it. That will do it for us today. We hope this will be a big help to you when it comes time to settling a debt. Again, the phone number is 501-0966. It's Texas Debt Defense. We'll be back with you again next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.